I have a family of my mother's sister's husband and nephew, and they went to the sea without me because I got sick, and my nephew and sister stayed with me and immediately started treating me, but the nephew treated me with special methods, and when my sister noticed, she decided to join me too. It's strange how much noise happiness makes. You don't realize it when you're in it, the clink of glasses, the rustle of open suitcases, the layered sound of voices talking over each other about sandals and chargers, and don't forget your sunscreen. The laughter doesn't seem loud when it's yours. But when it stops, when it leaves without you, the silence that follows feels like punishment. I wasn't supposed to stay behind. That was never the plan. I had my swimsuit packed, my nails done, even a new wide-brimmed hat I never wear but always pretend I might. We were going to Los Angeles. The sea, the sky, a rented house with too many windows, and a hot tub nobody would clean. It was a joint family thing, as chaotic as that sounds. My mother's sister, her husband, their son, and of course, me and my own husband. Two branches stitched loosely together, always overlapping at holidays and shared meals. My cousin, or rather my nephew, if you count through the right lines, was a quiet shadow when younger, but taller now, broader in the shoulders, quieter in the voice. We weren't close, just familiar. The night before we were supposed to fly, the house was buzzing. Everyone was drinking. Music played in the kitchen. My sister was already in her bright travel dress, barefoot, laughing with a glass of Prosecco in her hand. Her husband kept telling the same story about the time he got food poisoning in Mexico, as if reliving it would prevent it from happening again. I smiled through most of it, laughed when expected, but something was wrong. Small at first. A tightness behind the eyes. A chill that wasn't the wine. I blamed the air conditioner, the draft near the hallway, the travel nerves. I said nothing. Later that night, I woke with my skin soaked and my throat sealed shut. By morning, my body belonged to someone else. Burning, pulsing, wrong. A furnace under my skin, every breath loud and wet. I sat up in bed, dizzy, and the room swayed with me. Jesus, I whispered. My voice cracked like old wood. I didn't want to ruin the trip. I didn't want anyone to make a fuss. I downed 3 cold pills, drank a glass of juice, washed my face until it hurt, and walked into the kitchen trying to look alive. They all turned at once. "You look awful," my sister said, half laughing. "Thanks." My husband stepped forward, felt my forehead. His touch was cool, gentle, but I saw the shift in his expression before he said a word. "You're burning." "I'll be fine by tomorrow." "You're not flying like this." "I'm not staying," I snapped. But we both knew I was. It was a blur after that. Phone calls, insurance updates, debates over flight changes, someone offering to postpone everything, someone else saying we'd lose the house deposit. I said, "Go." They hesitated. My sister hovered with a mix of guilt and anticipation in her eyes. I smiled. "Really? Go." And then the bags were in the car. The doors closed. The laughter moved into the driveway. A last wave through the window. I turned away before the engine started. I wasn't completely alone. That's what they said when they left. "Don't worry," my sister added, her voice lighter now. "We're not monsters. Jacob and I are staying with you tonight. Just until you feel better. Right, Jake?" He nodded once. That same small, unreadable smile he always had. I didn't argue. I couldn't. That night, I curled up under a mountain of blankets in the guest bedroom while they moved quietly through the house. My head pulsed. My spine ached. I could barely keep water down. But I remember this clearly. Hearing their voices in the kitchen, low and rhythmic. Hearing the kettle hiss. The fridge door open. The shuffle of socks across tile. The comfort of not being alone. I drifted in and out of sleep. Images blurred. The beach I wouldn't see. The ocean I wouldn't touch. Sunlight on skin that would stay pale and covered. A laugh that wasn't mine. And then, sometime before dawn, I woke to feel a damp cloth pressed gently to my forehead. I didn't open my eyes. The fingers were unfamiliar. Slower, larger than my sister's. A whisper, "You're okay." And then the sound of a chair scraping softly backward. I opened my eyes too late. Only the doorway remained. Only the dark. The second day was worse. The fever wrapped around my spine like vines, tight and clinging. Every breath dragged, heavy and slow, and my skin couldn't decide whether it was freezing or on fire. The world tilted when I moved, so I stopped trying. I stayed in bed, layered in cotton and quiet. Jacob knocked in the morning. Lightly. I didn't answer. But he came in anyway, carrying tea. "You should drink this," he said softly. "Your throat sounds like it hurts." It did. I sat up, slowly, and took the mug. His fingers brushed mine. Warm, dry, present. "Thanks," I croaked. He didn't leave. He sat at the edge of the bed, not touching me, but near enough that I could feel the pull of his body, like gravity. "You look a little better." "You're lying." He smiled. "A little." The silence between us stretched. I sipped. The tea burned my tongue. He watched me the whole time, not like someone monitoring symptoms, but like someone studying expressions. I told myself it was just concern. And that lie worked. For now. My sister came in an hour later with soup and a thermometer. She pressed the cold metal under my tongue and asked about body aches, congestion, appetite. Jacob sat in the chair across the room, quiet. He didn't say much while she was there. But I could feel his eyes every time she turned away. She fussed, refluffed pillows, adjusted the curtains, left with a kiss to my forehead. The moment she was gone, Jacob stood. "Want more tea?" "No," I said, voice low. He paused at the door, then looked back. "You're strong. I don't think you know that." He said it like it was fact, then walked out. I didn't know what to do with the heat that statement left behind. It lingered under my skin like a second fever. The next few days were a pattern: sleep, sweat, tea, silence. And Jacob, always near, always helpful, always careful, but only just. His fingers grazed my shoulder when he brought water. He tucked the blanket under my legs with slow, precise movements. When he lifted my arm once to help me sit, his hand lingered on my wrist long after I was upright. He never crossed a line. But he stopped pretending the line wasn't there. One afternoon, I woke up disoriented, sweating through my nightshirt, my head pounding in rhythm with the ticking clock. I pressed my hand to my forehead. Burning. The pills weren't working anymore. My sister was asleep in the next room. I didn't want to wake her. I sat up, dizzy, trying to breathe through it. Then the door creaked open. Jacob. He didn't speak. Just walked in and sat beside me. "You're worse again," he said. I nodded. Couldn't speak. "I've been thinking," he continued. "You've tried everything. Pills, tea, sleep." I closed my eyes. There's something that helped me once when I was sick. Breathing exercises. Pressure points. Nothing medical, just grounding. I opened my eyes. He was looking at me, not like a boy with an idea, but like someone already sure. "What do you mean?" "It's hard to explain," he said. I blinked. "That sounds strange." "I know. But it works. It always does." I didn't answer. He leaned closer. "I won't do anything you don't want," he said quietly. "But I can help. If you let me." The words settled in the space between us like dust. And I felt it. That unmistakable pulse beneath my skin, not from the fever. From something else. I said nothing. I let it happen, telling myself it was just care. Nothing more. He reached out, placed one hand lightly on my forehead, the other on my wrist. His touch was warm. Too warm. "Breathe slowly," he said. I did. I followed the rhythm of his breath. Inhale. Exhale. His hand shifted to my temple, then to my shoulder, firm and focused like someone trying to calm a shaking branch. His fingers didn't tremble. Mine did. "There's a lot of tension," he whispered. "You're holding everything in." My stomach tightened. He pressed his palm gently against my upper chest, where my breath caught too often lately. Fingers spread gently, never harsh. "Here too," he murmured. I was trembling, maybe from the fever, maybe from the attention, the surrender, or maybe just exhaustion, disguised as ease. I felt the tension leaving me, more from exhaustion than relief, and I didn't resist the comfort. Then, the door opened. We both froze. My sister stood in the hallway, and for a moment, just one breath, everything stopped. I expected her to scream, to turn away. He looked between us. Her brows furrowed. Then she stepped in and said gently, "You're both tired. This isn't the time for experiments. You should be resting, not experimenting with nonsense." Her hand brushed mine, not with intimacy, but warning. Closed the door softly behind her. Her voice was calm, almost tender. I didn't answer. Jacob stood slowly. "You need space to breathe, not more hands around you," he said. "But only if she wants it." My sister looked at me. Her eyes were wide, but not afraid. She stepped closer. "I know that heat," she whispered. "She needs calm. Not more hands, not theories. Just time." She stood next to me, but didn't sit. Her presence was steady, like an anchor, not an accomplice. It began the way distance always does, not with absence, but with hesitation. In the moment you don't stop something soon enough. In the moment your body doesn't ask permission before it starts to want. And when you try to rewind it later, try to find the exact breath where no could have still existed, all you hear is silence. Not absence. Silence. Because something else had already entered the room by then. And it wasn't either of them. It was me. The fever was still there, but quieter now. Less flame, more embers. It flickered under my skin, made my thoughts soft and round, like cotton soaked in heat. My shirt clung to me, damp from hours of sweat, and every part of my body felt like it was floating just slightly above the bed. I thought I was dreaming when the door opened again. I wasn't. Jacob stepped in, quiet and composed, carrying the kind of calm that settles a room, just something with weight. The air changed when he moved, like it did when a storm was coming. Heavy, but slow. He didn't speak. He sat beside me, like before. But this time, he came without words. Just a kind of presence that lingered. I could have said something then. Could have shifted away, pulled the blanket higher, made a joke, coughed louder, anything. But my body didn't move. Not in protest. Not in fear. It just waited. Like it already knew. Like it had been waiting for this. He sat near the edge of the bed, adjusting the blanket without speaking. Light, circular pressure. Not probing. Not asking. Just contact. He looked at me, eyes unreadable, patient. "I can help," he said. His voice was low, deliberate, almost reverent. "But you have to want it." I blinked slow. My mouth opened. But no sound came out. That was my answer. That was enough. He shifted slightly, his hand brushing the blanket as he reached to help me sit up. Not quickly. Not arrogantly. As if following a map I hadn't drawn, but had always carried. His fingers paused behind my knee. Stayed there. Warm. Waiting. I felt something release in my chest. A breath I hadn't realized I was holding for years. It wasn't attraction. It was a longing to feel understood. A hunger to be known. To be touched like something sacred, not something tolerated. When he steadied me by the side, making sure I was sitting comfortably, I trembled. Not from sickness. From recognition. From the unbearable gentleness of someone seeing me fully and not looking away. He leaned over me slightly, his breath brushing the side of my face. Still okay? He whispered. I nodded. And then, the door creaked. We both froze. My heart didn't stop, it started beating too loud. And into the doorway stepped my sister. Barefoot, hair tied back, holding a folded towel in her arms. She stopped when she saw us. Her eyes flicked from me to him, to his hand, to mine, to the way my body had gone still, but not tense. A silence stretched, deep, awful. I opened my mouth. I thought she would scream. Instead, she closed the door behind her, quietly, and said, "It's working." I couldn't speak. She walked over. Her eyes didn't look at me like a judge, only like someone who had already lived something I hadn't admitted. She reached out not to me, but to him, handed him the towel. "He needs this," she said softly. "Under her neck. Otherwise she'll overheat." He nodded. No one was pretending anymore. No one was lying with words. Only with breath. With how gently we were letting it happen. She sat beside me, brushed my forehead, whispered, "You're okay." Jacob adjusted the towel under my neck, his touch as precise as a doctor, but his eyes, not clinical. Never that. They asked something wordless. And I gave an answer that didn't use sound. I adjusted my posture, trying to get comfortable under the covers. My sister touched my arm. He touched the space just below my ribs. They moved around me carefully, adjusting things like a team of nurses. Like they had done this before. In another life. There's no clean way to explain what followed. No plot, no lines, no cause and effect. Only moments. Only heat. Only my body becoming something I had kept locked away for too long. The room filled with warmth that didn't come from fever. Movements unfolded around me, unfamiliar but oddly comforting. Their voices, when they spoke, were barely above thought. Everything blurred, not like a dream, but like a painting you pressed too hard on, until the shapes bled into one another. I felt Jacob's breath near my shoulder, his hand flat against the small of my back. My sister sat nearby, offering a quiet, grounding presence. And I dissolved. At some point, time stopped. Or maybe it just let go of us. When it ended, whatever happened left the air feeling oddly charged, like after a storm. As if we had made something too large for it to contain. I lay very still. Covered, breathing slowly. My sister kissed my temple, just once, like when we were little. Jacob stood. He didn't speak. He touched the edge of the blanket one last time, gently, like it mattered. Then left. And she followed. And I remained. Alone. But not lonely. The silence after was not empty. It was full of something too big for words. I turned my head toward the window. Rain touched the glass. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just felt the hum beneath my skin, like something ancient had woken up. And for the first time, it didn't scare me. Morning came slow. No fever. No dizziness. No weight pressing down on my chest. Just air. Clear, dry air moving through me like something had been excavated. I sat up in bed. The sheets felt cool. My skin not damp but light. For the first time in days, I could breathe without effort. The house was quiet, not heavy, not charged, just still. A different kind of silence. I touched my collarbone absently. It didn't burn anymore. But I remembered where it had. In the kitchen, my sister was making tea. She turned when I entered, eyes already soft. "You look better," she said, no emphasis. I nodded. "I feel better." Jacob wasn't there. She didn't mention him. She handed me the cup. Our fingers didn't touch. I didn't ask where he was. And she didn't ask how I'd slept. The unspoken agreement between us was a tender thing. Not shame, not avoidance. Just understanding. A secret kept not from fear, but because it was already complete. Later that day, the phone buzzed. Video call. My husband's name lit up the screen. I hesitated before answering, then pressed accept. His face appeared tanned, bright, the sun behind him, the ocean loud and soft at once. "There's the patient," he said, grinning. "You look amazing." I feel human again. He turned the phone to show the beach, my aunt, her husband, the waves crawling over the shore. "We miss you here," he said. I smiled. "Looks perfect. It's not the same without you." I nodded, said all the right things. Told him I was drinking tea, that my temperature had broken, that my sister was taking good care of me. He looked relieved, and I watched his eyes, steady, kind, familiar. But I no longer belonged in that view. Not because of betrayal. Because of something else. A quiet that had moved into me and rearranged the furniture. He promised to call later. I said I'd rest. And when the call ended, I sat at the edge of the bed and stared at the blank wall. Not thinking, just breathing, feeling the absence of fever. And the presence of nothing. I didn't see Jacob again that day. Or the day after. Sometimes I heard his voice from the next room. Heard the door open and close. Once I passed him in the hallway. He nodded. I nodded back. That was all. It didn't need to be more. We had touched something that didn't require repetition. Some things don't want to be turned into routine. Some moments are meant to stay singular. Like the sound of glass breaking just once and echoing forever in the corners. 3 days later, they returned. Luggage rolled across the floor. Laughter spilled into the house. My husband kissed me quickly and held me long. "You smell like yourself again," he said. I nodded. "I missed you," he whispered. I smiled. "I'm glad you came back in one piece," I replied. That night, they showed me pictures. Sandcastles. Sunsets. Seafood. I laughed in the right places. Made comments. Admired tans. Jacob sat quietly at the end of the table, scrolling through his phone. Our eyes met once. No smile. No tension. Just an echo. In bed, my husband wrapped his arm around my waist. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in. I let his warmth settle against my back. He kissed my shoulder, whispered something soft. I nodded in the dark. But I was no longer in that room. Not fully. A part of me had stayed somewhere else. In the silence that followed fever. In the hands that never asked. In the moment I let go, not to escape, but to exist. The next morning, I made breakfast. Toast. Fruit. Tea. He joked about how nice it was to be home. I watched him chew, watched his mouth move around stories. He was lovely. He always had been. But I wasn't reaching for lovely anymore. I had reached a part of myself I didn't know was still alive. And once your hands remember that texture, comfort starts to feel too smooth. Life resumed. The house filled again. Doors opened and closed. The air smelled of soap and sunscreen. Everything looked like before. But I wasn't. And no one asked why. Not even me. One night, I stood by the window alone. The curtains swayed. The moon sharp above the street. I closed my eyes. He wasn't there. She wasn't either. But I could still feel them not as people. As heat. As a moment that unstitched me and left the thread unknotted. Sometimes we think what we need is healing. But sometimes, what we need is to be undone. To burn out of ourselves everything that no longer breathes. To leave behind not just guilt, but the version of us that pretended too long. And now? Now I move through the house like I belong to it again. But softer. Less present. More like memory. And if anyone notices, they don't say a word. Because some silences, once opened, are too sacred to name.